The massive space station of the Galactic Alliance floated among the stars, its faint blue glow shimmering like a precious gem in the vast, dark expanse of space. It was a meeting place for the most intelligent and powerful species in the universe, and today, all eyes were fixed on the main gate. A crowd of alien beings had gathered, towering figures with sleek bodies or armored exoskeletons that gleamed under the station's lights, each radiating an air of pride and confidence. They murmured among themselves, their voices a mix of hisses, growls, and clicks, all carrying undertones of intrigue. The automated gate slid open with a hiss, footsteps echoed, breaking the tense silence, but instead of a group of dignified alien warriors, two humans stepped through, a man with tousled brown hair and eyes that sparkled with the weight of untold stories, and a petite woman whose glasses reflected the blue lights of the station. They wore no protective armor, and carried no advanced technology, only a pair of worn backpacks slung over their shoulders. Adam Reeves raised an eyebrow at the curious stares of the alien crowd, a faint smile curling on his lips. "Good morning," he said cheerfully, as if greeting a gathering of old friends rather than a crowd of towering, sharp-eyed extraterrestrials. Elena Cross shot him a side glance, her lips pressed tight to stifle a wry smile. "Could you draw a little less attention to us?" she murmured, but Adam simply shrugged, unconcerned. Across the chamber, a towering alien with gray skin and eyes glowing like embers snorted loudly, standing over 3 meters tall. The being's disdain was palpable. "These are the Deathworlders we've heard about? I expected greater warriors." "Calm yourself, Gareth," a cold voice cut through the air. Another figure stepped out from the shadows, Verta, the course administrator. Her silver skin glinted like the edge of a blade under the station's lights. Her piercing eyes lingered on Adam and Elena, her expression skeptical. "Earth has been invited solely for its classification as a death world, but that title means nothing if you can't prove your worth." Adam didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned to Elena, his grin widening. "Sounds like a group project, doesn't it?" he chuckled. Elena didn't reply, simply adjusting her glasses with a flick of her fingers. "I will let the course determine your value," Verta said, her voice sharp as ice. "But remember, this is no game. This course has claimed the lives of the most elite warriors. If you fail, I won't waste time mourning." Adam shrugged, his nonchalance visibly irritating the crowd. "You make it sound like a reality TV show," he replied, his tone light. Elena sighed, quietly tugging him toward the group heading to the testing grounds. As they crossed the threshold, darkness enveloped them. From the distance came a deep, guttural roar that rattled the ground beneath their feet. A wave of scorching heat swept over them, carrying the acrid stench of charred earth. Elena turned to Adam, a flicker of worry crossing her face, but Adam remained still, his eyes alight not with fear, but with excitement. "Welcome to paradise," he whispered, his smile unwavering. The steel door slammed shut behind them with a resounding echo, like the toll of a bell announcing the beginning of an unyielding journey. Ahead of them stretched the simulated jungle, though there was nothing simulated about its appearance. Towering trees with thick canopies blocked out much of the light, creating a damp, suffocating atmosphere. Every small sound carried through the air, the rustling of leaves, the faint breathing of hidden creatures, turning the tension into something almost tangible. Adam stepped forward, pausing to take in the scenery. His eyes gleamed with fascination like a child entering an enchanted forest straight out of a storybook. He bent down, picked up a dry branch, and twirled it in his hands as if weighing its potential. Behind him, Elena moved cautiously, her sharp eyes scanning the dense undergrowth. She frowned slightly as she caught a glimpse of Adam's delighted expression. "Don't you think this is concerning?" she asked, her voice low but tinged with doubt. "Concerning? I'd call it a chance to relax," Adam replied, raising an eyebrow as though he'd just heard the most absurd question. Elena shook her head, choosing not to respond, but she could feel the tightness in her chest as the jungle began to stir with unfamiliar sounds, a low, moaning noise, like the scrape of metal against stone. That was no wind. A sudden chill swept through the air, carrying with it the earthy scent of damp soil mixed with the sharp tang of unfamiliar plants. A loud noise erupted behind them. It was the alien group that had entered after them, led by Gareth, the towering, gray-skinned giant with glowing crimson eyes. He sneered, his deep voice vibrating with mockery. "Do you humans really think you can survive here? You'd best start praying now." Adam turned back, a faintly amused smile spreading across his face. "Thanks for the advice, but you might want to save those prayers for yourself. I hear this jungle doesn't favor giants." Gareth growled but held his tongue. His group quickly pushed deeper into the jungle, leaving Adam and Elena behind. Elena glanced at Adam, her expression growing serious. You didn't need to provoke them. Don't worry, they'll be fine. But as for us, Adam said, raising the branch like a sword, we need to find water and shelter before nightfall. Elena nodded, suppressing the unease she felt at Adam's almost unnerving calmness. The two began to move forward, weaving through layers of dry leaves and gnarled roots. It wasn't long before they came upon a small stream. Adam crouched down, cupped some water in his hands, and took a sip. Clean, he said, wiping his mouth. Let's set up camp here. Elena agreed, gathering materials for a makeshift shelter while Adam surveyed the area, clearing away obstacles that might obscure their view of approaching threats. As he turned back toward Elena, a sudden noise erupted from the nearby brush. Both froze, their bodies tensing as they stared toward the source of the sound. From the shadows emerged a massive creature, its glowing eyes piercing through the twilight. It let out a thunderous roar that seemed to shake the very trees. Elena stepped back, her heart pounding as the beast crept closer, but Adam remained unfazed. He bent down, picked up a large stone, and gripped it tightly in his hand. It's fine, he said, his voice steady, almost unnervingly calm. As the creature advanced, Adam suddenly shouted, his voice echoing through the jungle. He hurled the stone forward with all his might. The unexpected yell and the stone's force startled the beast, causing it to halt. It let out a sharp screech before turning and vanishing back into the darkness. Elena stared at Adam, her eyes wide with disbelief. How did you know it would leave? I didn't, Adam replied, his grin as radiant as ever. But sometimes, all you need to do is act like you belong at the top of the food chain. Elena didn't say anything, but deep inside, something shifted. She felt a growing admiration, or maybe trust, for the man beside her. Adam wasn't just optimistic. He truly believed that no matter the odds, humans could always find a way to survive. The sky above the simulated jungle had turned a dull gray, with faint beams of light struggling to penetrate the dense canopy. The air grew heavier with each passing moment as if the jungle itself was bracing for an impending storm. Adam and Elena pressed forward, navigating treacherous terrain with steady determination. The stream where they had first set up camp now felt like a distant memory as they entered a new area, a valley shrouded in thick fog, where visibility extended only a few meters ahead. Elena stopped, carefully examining the navigation device they carried. The screen flashed with garbled symbols, indicating interference from some unseen energy field. We can't rely on technology, she said evenly, though her voice carried a note of unease. We'll have to trust our instincts and logic. Adam glanced at her, his signature grin appearing effortlessly. Perfect. I prefer going on instinct anyway. It makes me feel more connected to the wild. Elena was about to reply when a sudden screeching noise pierced the air to their right. Both of them tensed as a small creature darted out of the underbrush. Its glowing eyes and razor-sharp teeth gave it an ominous appearance. Despite its size, Elena instinctively reached for the knife at her side, but Adam calmly bent down, picked up a branch, and held it in front of him like a barrier. Easy there, little guy, he said, his voice calm yet firm. The creature hissed and growled but eventually turned and skittered back into the shadows. Adam turned to Elena, shrugging as if the encounter had been nothing more than a minor inconvenience. We might be uninvited guests, but that doesn't mean we have to be enemies. It was a comforting thought, at least until they faced their next challenge. The valley began to morph into a swampy mire, where every step was a struggle against the sticky, clinging mud that seemed intent on swallowing them whole. Elena slipped, nearly plunging into a dark, watery pit, but Adam was there in an instant, gripping her arm and pulling her to safety. Don't look down, he said softly but firmly. Trust your feet. They pushed onward, tackling each obstacle the jungle threw at them, fallen trees blocking their path, predatory creatures lurking in the shadows, and unstable ground. Strangely, while other species relied on advanced technology and brute force, Adam and Elena used only their wits and human resilience. They didn't just survive, they thrived, moving forward with a calm efficiency that baffled anyone who observed them. By the second day, they encountered Garetha's group in a narrow gorge. The once proud aliens now looked battered and exhausted. Their once sleek gray skin was cracked and dirt-streaked, and some bore injuries inflicted by the jungle's natural traps. Gareth eyed Adam and Elena with suspicion, but his usual sneer was absent. How are you two still unscathed? He asked, his deep voice tinged with frustration and disbelief. Adam paused, offering the giant alien a relaxed smile. We come from a place where everything tries to be difficult for you. If you survive long enough, you learn to adapt. And, most importantly, you never give up. Gareth didn't reply, though his intense gaze softened slightly. Elena tugged at Adam's arm, reminding him they needed to keep moving. Before leaving, Adam placed a water bottle on the ground near Gareth. Here, you'll need this to keep going. As darkness fell, the jungle came alive with eerie noises and flickering lights. Adam and Elena set up camp under a massive tree, using leaves and vines to create a simple shelter. They sat by the faint glow of their small fire, Elena silently sharpening her knife while Adam fashioned crude tools from rocks he had collected along the way. "Aren't you afraid?" Elena asked suddenly, her gaze fixed on the dancing flames as though speaking more to herself than to him. Adam paused, studying her for a long moment before answering. "Of course I am, but fear isn't a bad thing. It keeps us alert. The key is not letting it control you." Elena didn't reply, but a flicker of something new passed through her eyes, trust, perhaps, or even admiration. No matter what lay ahead, she knew that with Adam beside her, they would find a way forward. Above all, it was humanity's greatest strength not in technology or brute strength, but in the unyielding will to rise above any challenge. The final night in the simulated jungle felt utterly surreal. The sky above was pitch black, yet it occasionally exploded with violent flashes of lightning that tore through the air like jagged spears. Gusts of wind howled through the dense foliage, carrying with them the acrid scent of scorched earth. Elena tightened the makeshift cloth draped over her shoulders, her worried eyes fixed on the path ahead. Adam walked beside her, the faint light from his torch flickering across the thick, oppressive canopy. "We're heading straight into the heart of the challenge," Elena said, her voice soft but heavy with tension. "They want us to face something insurmountable." Adam stopped, turning to look at her. The ever-present grin on his face faded, replaced by an unusually serious expression. "Nothing is insurmountable. Elena, we didn't come this far just to give up." A low rumble echoed from the distance, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Adam raised his hand, signaling Elena to stop. Ahead, they could make out a towering cliff face, where rivers of molten lava cascaded down into bubbling, fiery pools below. The only way forward was a narrow stone bridge stretching across the abyss. At its center stood a massive creature, its glowing red eyes piercing the gloom. Its metallic body shimmered with a reflective, almost indestructible sheen. "This is it," Elena whispered, her voice trembling. "The final test." Adam didn't respond. His gaze was fixed on the beast, unflinching. "We can't turn back now. If we want to finish this, we have to get through it." Elena opened her mouth to protest, but Adam was already stepping onto the bridge. "Are you insane? It'll kill you in seconds," she shouted, panic rising in her voice. Adam turned back briefly, his expression calm, his smile laced with a strange kind of confidence. "If we don't try, we'll never know." The beast let out a deafening roar as Adam approached, shaking the entire bridge. It lifted one massive clawed foot and slammed it down, causing the stone structure to tremble violently. Adam took a half step back, but he didn't stop. Gripping the dry branch in his hand like a sword, he stood his ground. When the creature lunged again, Adam dodged with remarkable agility, striking its leg with the makeshift weapon. A sharp screech filled the air as the creature recoiled, seemingly surprised by the resistance. "Elena, go, now!" Adam shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos, but she remained frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. "Go, I can't hold it off forever." Elena's mind raced, torn between staying to help and seizing the slim chance Adam had given her. She bit her lip, forcing herself to move. Her legs felt like lead as she sprinted across the bridge. As she reached the midpoint, the creature's focus shifted to her, its glowing eyes narrowing. It roared and charged toward her. "Over here, big guy," Adam bellowed, waving his branch wildly to regain the beast's attention. "You're not fast enough to catch me." The creature turned back toward Adam, roaring furiously as it lunged. Adam leaped onto a nearby boulder, narrowly dodging the attack. The beast's momentum carried it into the side of the bridge, causing a large section to crack and crumble into the lava below. Elena barely managed to reach the other side before the damage became catastrophic. On solid ground, Elena turned back, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she watched Adam still dodging and weaving. "Jump over here," she screamed. Adam glanced at the fiery chasm beneath the collapsing bridge. The heat from the lava licked at his skin, but his expression remained unshaken. With a final burst of speed, he dashed toward the edge of the bridge, timing his leap perfectly. The creature roared once more, lunging after him, but Adam soared through the air, landing beside Elena just as the bridge gave way. The massive beast plunged into the molten abyss, its enraged roar cut short as it disappeared into the heat. Adam turned to Elena, his face streaked with sweat and dust, yet his familiar grin had returned. That wasn't the worst thing we've faced, was it? Elena let out a laugh, half in relief and half in exasperation. We made it. Together, they turned to face the path ahead, where the warm glow of the finish line beckoned in the distance. They knew they hadn't just overcome the final trial, they had proven something far greater. No matter how dire the circumstances, humanity's strength lay in its relentless spirit and unyielding will to persevere. And in this moment, that strength had carried them farther than anyone had thought possible. Brilliant light from the finish line enveloped Adam and Elena as they stepped through the final gate. Before them stretched a vast platform, with stone steps leading up to an observation deck. From there, they could see the entirety of the harsh jungle they had just conquered. But they were not alone. Other groups had also made it, though none of them looked victorious. Gareth and his team stood nearby, their massive forms battered and caked with dirt. A few other alien competitors sat slumped on the ground, their exhaustion and defeat etched into every labored breath. Every head turned as Adam and Elena appeared, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and muted awe. No one could fathom how the two humans, initially dismissed as the weakest participants, had arrived unscathed. Adam and Elena climbed the steps to the observation deck in silence. Together, they stood at the edge, gazing out over the jungle now swallowed by shadows. A voice broke through the stillness behind them. You've accomplished what many others could not. It was Vertha, the course director, her presence commanding and her silver eyes sharp as blades. She approached with measured steps, the metallic sheen of her skin glinting in the torchlight. But I must know, how did you do it? What is your secret? Adam smiled, his grin wide but devoid of arrogance. There's no secret, he replied gently. We did what humans always do, we refused to stop. When everything around us tried to pull us down, we just stood up and kept moving forward. Vertha said nothing, but her expression betrayed a flicker of astonishment and, perhaps, admiration. Around them, murmurs rippled through the crowd as the other competitors tried to digest Adam's words. Before anyone could speak further, Gareth stepped forward, his towering frame cast a long shadow, and his glowing red eyes locked onto Adam's. You surprised me, human, he said, his deep voice devoid of the scorn it once carried. I thought you would crumble, but instead, you've proven yourselves stronger than I imagined. Adam took a step closer, meeting Gareth's gaze. Instead of replying with words, he extended his hand. Gareth hesitated, the flicker of uncertainty crossing his eyes. Then, with a decisive motion, he grasped Adam's hand, the handshake firm enough to feel like a test of strength. Elena stood by, smiling faintly but keeping her eyes on the interaction. We're not stronger, Adam said, breaking the silence. We just don't shy away from doing what needs to be done. Gareth released his grip, giving a single, brief nod acknowledgement without words. As the crowd began to disperse, Adam and Elena lingered on the observation deck, savoring a rare moment of peace. It's over, Elena said, her voice soft, like a sigh of relief. We made it. Adam chuckled, placing a hand on her shoulder. No, this is just the beginning. If they think this is all humans are capable of, they have so much more to learn. Elena didn't reply, but her smile deepened, carrying a quiet confidence. Together, they descended from the deck, the torchlight illuminating their steps as though marking a path into history. Every alien in the clearing, from the strongest to the most frail, turned to watch them pass. No longer did they look with disdain or skepticism. Instead, their gazes carried admiration, not for brute strength or advanced technology, but for a spirit that refused to falter. And so, amidst the stars of a vast galaxy, the story of two humans from Earth, those who proved that true strength lies not in tools or weapons, but in the resolve of the soul, began to spread, destined to become a legend for the ages.